a hallmark of the Vision City visit experience has always been sort of there's always a processing time at the end. And we sort of try to reflect on what we've done and what we've learned and just observations along the way. So I'm gonna kind of ask that of our folks here that have been such a big part of putting this conference together, but also had such an important role in having a vision and building communities where they are. And so we'll get you all mic'd up here shortly. And my question for you is gonna be, what are some takeaways you have? What are things that you thought about, maybe reaffirm something you thought, or a new learning or a conversation you had in the course of the last 3 days that sticks with you and that you would be your takeaway or two?
For me, and working with Christy and planning this, I'm just excited that people got an authentic glimpse into Franklin and sort of somewhat behind the curtain a little bit. You know, it is, as Maureen said, sometimes people come, or you said, that people come and then they come back the next day because they didn't think it was real.
Yeah.
It's real what people saw here, and we were able to tell some fantastic stories and had great participation from such a wide array of speakers. I'm sort of in awe still, and I think we'll take a little time to think about this. So that's my thought.
Christy?
Well, I do love the authenticity here, and I do feel like I had sort of a homecoming this week. It's been a while since I've been back to Franklin, and y'all have done quite a bit since I was here last. And what I really love about the stories and collaboration, because I'm a firm believer in collaboration, is that communities, just like we need the community that thinks global but acts local, we also need the community that is the outreach of sister communities throughout the nation. You know, I think about our friend Knox White should be here this week and was recently hit by the hurricane. And so many communities that need to pull together and really, even in times of disaster, just pull together as a nation in that way. But what I got out of this weekend was the intimacy of Franklin and how it does make me feel like when I go to Leapers Fork or when I'm in Seaside or Alice or Rosemary, and there's some very good lessons that we learned this week as well, because even though Seaside is the original, and like when you're the original in anything, you make mistakes. So adaptation is in our core values, and one of the things that we're continually doing is researching and adapting our model, and then drawing influence from other communities on how could we, even in our county, grow forward better. And Williamson, you're doing a good job at that. So,
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Well, I'm just in awe of this conference and what's happened. We are a very unique community. And I think part of it's because we've had a vision of what we wanted to be. We've had a lot of planning that goes into how to create that roadmap to get there. And we've had a lot of people that have gotten on board, elected officials, citizens. My takeaway is really how important collaboration is in our community, to have community input, to create the plan so that you have that community buy-in. But I've got to digress just a teeny bit because I went to vote this morning and I had a very unpleasant experience standing in line. I won't go any further than that, but I think one of our biggest threats is challenging our civility, being able to talk to each other in a fashion where we can both have different viewpoints, but we need to respect each other, whether we like what they're saying or don't like it. It's important that we be able to have that conversation with each other. We see it regularly, that we're having conversations about City Hall and what should or shouldn't be, and there's lots of opinions there, but we eventually get to an agreement on that. So I think that we need to continue to work on being civil to each other and being able to have those conversations again and get rid of some of the anger that we see all across our country.
Amen. So we're Vision City, vision is in the title, right? And one of my great learnings from a mentor early in my career in public service was that a leader really understands and focuses in on three things. Vision is number one. Understanding kind of where you want to go and articulating that. Values, what you stand for, what you won't stand for. And just understanding the environment in which you're operating. Three very simple concepts, but vision, values, and environment. And so that has stuck with me throughout a 30-plus year career in public service. Talk about the vision piece, how you keep it alive. My other quote, I heard a pastor say years ago, that people's vision buckets have holes in it. So you got to keep filling them up. You may think this is the 500th time you've talked about why downtown is important, but it might be the first time for somebody, or it might be that their bucket has a big hole in it and it's just drained away and they need to hear that story again. So talk about your perspective, and maybe Mayor, you can start and we'll work back this way, on vision and keeping it alive and how you talk about that in a way that connects with the community and keeps that bucket being filled and keeps us moving forward about where we are but where we want to go.
Well, I think you just nailed it right there, that it's talking to the community. And we do that in a lot of ways with public meetings and opportunities for citizens to speak at our meetings. I'm particularly fond of the fact that every other year we do a community citizen survey that tells us what our community is thinking, but at the same time we can look at 600 and something other communities that are similar to us, and some larger, some smaller, and see how we're doing so we can grade ourselves. So community input, making sure you got a good plan, not being afraid to go back and look at that plan of how you're going to achieve that vision, and making sure that you're listening to the community. One quick story. When I was an orthopedic surgeon, our academy conducted a thing about patient communication. They talked to the patients, and the patients said, "They're the worst listeners I've ever seen." And you talk to the orthopedic surgeons, and the orthopedic surgeon says, "We're the best communicators that have ever been." And so we need to be cognizant of that as we move forward to make sure that we're listening to people and what they're telling us.
Thank you, Mayor. Christy?
I come from a medical background too, and it's funny because I see so many parallels. Really when you're in a community, you're triaging what's important first. You know, like what is important first, and communication is always number one. Getting the feedback from the community for me is number one right now in our vision forward. And in fact, we have a second charrette going on right now with Andreas Duani of DPZ and Marina Curry in our community of Walton County for the comprehensive plan for 2040 for the rest of our county. And so we've been a facilitator and a hosting site for that, and bringing people to the table to really have charrettes and community engagement and what's really vital and important, all the way down to emergency services. That's how we plan to carry the vision forward. We certainly want to act locally, but we think globally. So, and these things are so important to us as we build our collaborations forward, and we just want to be a vessel for others that might need to, do some research as well.
So I think Franklin Amara, as I mentioned, will be 25 years old next year. And having been part of that since the beginning as a member of a steering committee and then chairman of that board, and then becoming the executive director, because when I saw that opportunity, somebody said this, John Allen said it yesterday. He saw an opening and he went, "Oh, okay, I'm going to go there." It for me brought to full fruition a 30-year career in the local media here, and that was telling stories. And there are so many stories here, and there's so many ways to listen to people without, just listen. Don't be looking for how you're going to respond. Listen to the stories. And then find people who have similar stories or who can complement each other and bring them together. In Franklin Tomorrow, we've been very lucky to be able to do that in a lot of instances, in a lot of ways. But just keep showing up, keep being part of the solution, not the problem. If there is a problem or situation, become creative and look for ways to solve it. And always know, because we've talked about this throughout the last few days, we're not just neighbors, we're family and friends, and let's treat each other respectfully and work towards building communities, not just neighborhoods, but communities with our people at heart. And so we're looking at several things for next year. Eric, I might be calling you about that.
I look forward to our next meeting.
We're looking at several things for next year that will continue to build community, and community changes over time. I came to Franklin in 1983, maybe it was, Mary, and Franklin was a different city. I grew up in Nashville. My dad came down here after I took a job at the then Review Appeal newspaper, and he called me the next couple days later, and he said, "Mindy, are you sure you're going to be safe down there? There are 3 liquor stores and 2 pool halls on the main street." And I said, "Daddy, I think it's going to be okay." And you know what? It has been okay. And it's been even better than okay. And so, but I do always think about my dad coming down here. And we used to come down here a lot, but then when he saw it from that father's eye, it was a different eye than coming down here to go shopping at the mall on the square or go to Carter's Court. But are you sure you're going to be okay? And in the end, it has been okay. And thanks to, and in part, large part to some of the people we've heard from over the last 3 days. And so I just appreciate, let's continue to engage the community, foster collaboration, and then advocate for a shared vision for the future of Franklin.
It's great, and we are so grateful to have an organization and a community like Franklin Tomorrow that creates that space where those conversations can happen, and you can support one another, and you can, even if you don't have the same perspective, you can try to say, together, we want to build something even better in Franklin, whether it's from our history or what our future will be. But that is unique to have that organization and a community that is willing to engage in that way.
And you have any takeaways or anything that have come to you during the last 3 days?
Well, a lot of things, but I always appreciate hearing the stories of things that we think are no-brainers today. How could you not do streetscape? Guess what? It wasn't easy, right, Mary? Right? I mean, so there are, what I always try to think of, what is that thing today that we're working on that seems controversial or people are being naysayers about, that 5 and 10 and 20 and 50 years from now, they'll say, of course. That is so obvious. Why would you not have done? Who could have ever been against fill in the blank? And having that perspective about what we're doing, not just about today, but over the long haul, and thinking about how does it position us? How does it best serve the broader community? How is it true to the heart of Franklin? Does that make sense? That's what I try to think about. And I think hearing some of the old stories, but also thinking about as we roll it forward, what are those things going to be in the future that we look at that will be foundational? And so I think that's what we all are kind of charged with as we go forward.
I just want to encourage people, if you're still here from out of town and you haven't visited the History and Culture Center, or you haven't gotten to go to Carnton, you have those tickets. They're, I think, good for whenever you want to go there. Or if you are from here and you haven't been to the History and Culture Center, do that, because we just have to become truly ambassadors for our communities. And Christy and Kimberly are great ambassadors for Seaside and Seaside Institute. Micah, meeting Micah and Tatiana. What a great experience we've had here this week. And I just, now, don't ask me yet about next year, okay? Don't ask me.
Yeah, it's not a good time to ask about next year quite yet. But I do want to also encourage, I know that many of you are locals, but anyone who can get to Leapers Fork, it's one of my very favorite places. Even when I lived here, I would go escape Nashville. the busy Nashville or escape just a little bit of Franklin, just to go have a peaceful Sunday out there and take pictures or just peacefully go through the galleries. Love David Arms Gallery out there. So Aubrey is doing great work out there. And it is such another room to Franklin, Tennessee and Williamson County. Like, you need to go visit that. And I agree with what Aubrey was saying earlier. The arts are so important in connecting story. And I think that Seaside knew that when they brought in some of their architects throughout the years. And in fact, the Institute's core started 43 years ago because we weren't in a city like Franklin is. The Seaside Institute's core was started and rooted in the arts. So we would bring in music, we would bring in plays, we would bring in whatever, so that visitors would have a nice experience while they were at the beach, and they were done with the beach for the day, and they've already had dinner, and they've already shopped. Now what do we do? And so that's where it started, and then when the town was to completion, it started to be the message forward for many of our architects, town planners, and that's how we, are here today.
I think we're at our time. Anything else you want to add?
Don't forget to get your Leapers Fork book in the lobby if you want the booklet, if you want that. And we'll be sending out a survey probably next week to the attendees to get your input. And maybe we're going to start talking about next year, whether that's a trip somewhere or because Christy wants us to come to Seaside in February for the prize.
It's the best time of year to come to the beach.
So we're going to look at a few things, but we'll be sending a survey, and we really appreciate you being here and appreciate your input. And thank you so much, Eric.
A big thank you to Franklin Tomorrow, Mindy, Emily, Seaside, Christy, Kimberly, and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.